begins when Xin Sheng, who is lauded as the demon king sitting on his throne, thinks that after many years of strategic conquest, his empire has finally grown to encompass the entire world. And then he looks at the people bowing down before him and thinks the world is flourishing. Tens of thousands have submitted themselves to him. Then he flies away from there, saying to himself that rumor has it there is a power in the realm of demons called the mystery of all lives. However, he turns to the demon realm to get that power so that he can rule forever. He leaves by telling his people that he is going to the demon realm and must task them with guarding the land in his absence. His people bowed before his throne, saying live long the king. Then Xin Sheng, looking at an object held in his hand, says to himself that after several difficult trials in the demon realm, he obtained it. After all those trials, he has found it and received the mystery of life. Now, he can bid this awful place farewell. But as soon as he opens his eyes, he finds himself in the real world, and after gaining that power, his body becomes that of a child. However, after this, he thinks, standing there sad, why does he look like a human child? That's not what he wants. Then he looks around and finds himself standing in the market, looking at the people buying and selling there. He wonders where his empire is and what happened to his great kingdom. After this, he looked at the people buying food and wondered when it became a food market. Meanwhile, 3 girls come there, one grabs him by his shirt from behind and lifts him, saying this stupid boy looks lost. These are the ruins of a 1,000-year-old empire, not a child's playground. Then she asked if he thought he could explore and find some treasure. They weren't about to let that behavior fly. Then he turned his head and looked at her, thinking insolently, how dare she grab him? After this, he uses his all-knowing eye and gets information about her. This all-knowing eye is his power. With its help, he can get information about anyone. Only those of royal blood possess the power to know everything about someone with a glance, and it's a convenient ability that allows the user to know one's strengths and weaknesses. Then he sighs, thinking her weakness has been exposed and she will pay the price for her audacity. Then he sniffles and looks toward them. As soon as he looks toward them, 3 of them fall in love with him and then lies on the ground holding their head, wondering what is happening to them. Sheng sighed, thinking about the perfect getaway. And then he stopped there, remembering that girl's words when she said these are the ruins of 1,000-year-old empires, not a child's playground. Remembering her words, he gets worried thinking about 1,000 years, and then he looks at the mark on his arm. He gets sad, considering he received no communication through the telepathic print. He gets anxious, then he closes his eyes, putting his hand on his heart, thinking the mere thought was his stomach in knots about what had happened. Meanwhile, a girl named Yang Yuchang runs toward him, shouting, and quickly gets out of her way. She gets to hurry and let everyone know. Seeing her running toward him, he thinks she is charging at him. Yet another disrespect to their superior is when she asks him to use his all-knowing eye again. He swishes and uses his eye, thinking the all-knowing eye can allow him to predict the path and a person will take, allowing him to evade them with ease, and as long as he shifts just a bit and then with his eye, he looks toward her face. After this, he gently looks toward the front part of her body. Meanwhile, she crashes with him, and his face presses in the front of her body so that he feels like he is dead and thinks why he collides with her chest. And why did his eyes deceive him? And then the girl fell on him as she was on top of him, and he was on the ground beneath her. Then she looks at Sheng, asking if he is okay, and apologizes to him, saying she didn't see him there, and due to her weight, his face becomes distorted. While hearing her, he wondered what she meant. She doesn't see him. Is she insulting his height? She does not respect her superior. He closes his eyes, thinking he will yell at her. However, she was sitting on him while he was lying on the ground, thinking she is lovely. Also, her warm touch and strength had a strange warmth. He feels something odd in his body and wonders if this is a part of the mystery of life he has acquired. Meanwhile, 2 girls, a fox lady and a devil lady arrive there. The fox lady asks Yongyu if she is weak to the cute little boy. Hearing this, Yongyu shouts that's not it, that kind of thing is no good. Then she gets up and tells them they say someone's already reached the deepest part of the ruins and might steal the royal treasure. Hearing this, both girls are surprised, and the fox lady asks Yongyu if it isn't that bad. And the devil lady stands beside her and asks Yongyu what she plans to do now. However, Yongyu clenched her fist and replied they must protect the king's dignity. After all, they were the last survivors of the empire. Hearing this, Sheng stands behind, thinking just these guys are wondering, but he isn't wondering that his kingdom is finished. After this, Yongyu takes him with them, and the 4 go to market. However, Sheng looks intently at the lemon juice lying on the table before him while Yongyu tells her teammates this market was built on the ruins of an ancient empire. Lots of treasure hunters and merchants come there. Meanwhile, Sheng points toward the car, passing them on the road, and asks Yang Yu miss what that is. Yang Yu tells him it's just an ordinary vehicle and surprisingly asks if he hasn't seen one before. Then he points toward the tablet in the Fox Lady's hand and asks what about this. Fox Lady smiles and says it's a tablet he can use to chat with others from far away, and all kinds of cool stuff. Then she captures his picture. While showing him his vision, she tells him, for example, keeping secret images of the cute little boy. Then he points toward the Devil Lady's chest and asks what is this. Hearing this, the Devil Lady stands up angrily and slams his head on the table, telling him this is a woman's combat armor. Shang hears this and thinks society has come a long way in his absence, which is what they call the power of technology, while the Devil Lady stands beside him, pressing his head. However, he thinks in this world, some would have extraordinary power, all obtained from the demon realm. If someone wanted to gain power, they could bring it quickly from the demon realm. Moreover, it's impossible to communicate between domains, and it's also impossible to predict where they will come out when they enter a portal since both the entrance and exit are constantly moving. Sometimes, they can escape through the dream realm, sleeping. Sometimes, they can even open a portal themselves. And it's because of this instability that people have chosen to rely on something other than the demon realm's power of technology. Times have changed, and he knows nothing about this new world. The ancient emperor is useless. He must be careful and keep out of sight while the Fox Lady is capturing his picture. After this, the Devil Lady asks Yang Yu why she wants to bring this orphan with them. Has she even considered what he wants? Hearing this, Yang Yu says that if they leave him, he will just get taken advantage of by others. He could even be forced into slavery. Then she, while putting her hand on Sheng's head, says big sister Yang Yu is there to protect him. Don't worry about her rank either. Hearing this, he asks what she means by position. Yang Yu explains that a person's strength is measured on a scale from 1 to 100. But precise measurements are challenging, so they rank them as god insane strong and common to estimate their strength level roughly. Hear this, he thinks the judge initially measured it to his all-knowing eye. There are no secrets to be hidden so long as the rules are known. As she explained to him, he, while looking toward her, used his all-knowing eye and got all the information about Yang Yu. This eye shows her name, level, and group, which was 8 in common. Then he looks toward the Fox Lady and gets the information about her reputation and status. However, the Fox Lady's name was Tu Shuya, and she liked little boys. He better be careful now. And her group was 36 and strong. While Tu Shuya is talking to the Devil Lady, she replies, "Don't talk so harshly about others." Sheng moved his all-knowing eye toward the Devil Lady. He gets the information that she is Wooly Dragon level 76 and insane. Tu Shuya says to Sheng, Wooly always looks like this, so don't take it to heart. So, Tu Shuya tightly holds Sheng lovingly, asking Yang Yu if she can give this kid to her. She then looks toward Sheng, saying she will take responsibility and treat him right, while he looks toward her and frowns. Hearing this, Yang Yu shouts at her, saying now she is just asking for a beating, while Tu Shuya gets scared and apologizes. After this, Wooly sighs and says this little boy is a liability, get rid of him. Then Yang Yu put a hand on her heart and smiled, saying she would take the time to take him somewhere safe later. Don't worry about him for now. Wooly sighed and replied that this had better not cause any problem hearing their conversation. Sheng thinks the rank assessment system only measures strength. This society seems not to value personal strength, and he feels strange. Then, looking toward Yang Yu, who is talking to her group mate, he thinks, why is she only level 8 even though she leads this group? Then Yang Yu smiled and asked Sheng his name and where he was from. As he was about to respond, Yang Yu looked toward the guy in the street and then pointed toward what he told her group mate. It's that guy with the cloak, and finally, they can start the mission, and he plans to steal from the temple ruins. Hear this, Wooly summoned and took out her weapon, saying the stakeout plan worked out nicely. Did he lower his guard for the treasure hunts? Tu Shuya also stood up, saying they must finish this job. Then Yang Yu tells Sheng they have a hazardous matter to deal with and wait for them to return, and she doesn't want him to get hurt because of them. He smiles and replies yes, and also promises her that he will wait there. After this, the three of them run from there, and Yang Yu, leaving there, tells him they will give him delicious food when they return. Hear this, he thinks he promises he won't let them suffer because of him, and the burden of protecting these ruins is no longer theirs. Then he clenches his fist, thinking now is the time to move past that ancient empire and begin anew. On the other side, Yang Yu, Wooly, and Tu Shuya follow that man and go behind him as soon as the three of them reach outside that old broken building. Standing outside, Tu Shuya says there is no doubt that guy went in through there, and Wooly, sitting down, replies there is no trace. It seems they came prepared while the Demon King stealths behind. Then Tu Shuyu asks if they don't know what's going on inside and what they do if there are traps, while Sheng sneaks past them. Then Yang Yu replies, saying if they keep hesitating, the king's treasure will be stolen, while the Sheng sneaks past the wall slowly. However, Yang Yu angrily grabs him by the head, saying he doesn't eavesdrop on the severe conversation. Sheng stands there sacredly thinking, do the people of this year pick others up when they disagree? Then they make him sit on the ground and stand around him. Seeing this, he thinks they are using their larger group to take advantage of him. Then, looking toward the three of them, he wonders how they dare to torment him. Yang Yu angrily looked at him, asking if she had told him not to follow them and why he hadn't listened. Then Wu Li beat him, saying he should have followed them initially, while Tu Shuyu scared him by making a scary look, saying if he didn't obediently go back, then she would eat him up. Seeing this, Sheng wonders why he is allowing this torment. They require discipline, and then Tu Shuyu treats him lovingly, but he wonders why his body refuses to resist. Also, Yang Yu and Wu Li stand beside them and look toward them. Meanwhile, someone throws a weapon towards Sheng, and Yang Yu blocks this weapon with her weapon sword. Seeing this, Wu Li and Tu Shuyu ask if this weapon is an ambush. Yang Yu says it's a diversion that is a phantom blade, a technique of Mahjong Dao. They can't delay it any longer. However, three of them run inside, and Yang Yu angrily says to Sheng before leaving and doesn't follow them. This is their fight. Standing there, Sheng thinks this expression is different, and then he looks at that old building and thinks he remembers something and feels that he has known this place for years. On the other side, that man inside the building standing before the throne looks at the wand and says he finally found it. The ancient emperor is in Sheng's scepter. Saying this, he took off his cloak, and behind that cloak was a girl who got near the wand. She was about to hold that wand, thinking this was the wand he used to maintain his demon over the whole empire. Meanwhile, Yang Yu clanks her weapon on that girl's neck from behind, saying drop it now, filth, it is not something she can sneak a peek at. Hearing this, she turns angrily, looking toward three of them, asking if this is a group she sees daily. Then she looked toward them individually, calling their name as if she already knew three of them. Then she smiled, asking whether they were the self-proclaimed ancient empire's supervisor, and then she attacked them with her phantom blade, saying this conversation was pointless and going to hell. However, Tu Shuyu comes around and uses her magic spell to attack that girl, and Yang Yu uses her spirit ability to stop the blades from attacking them. Seeing this, Wu Li also comes from behind, appreciating Yang Yu for saving them. After this, while taking out her sword, she thanks Yang Yu for her spiritual ability, and they don't need to worry much about things like Phantom Blade. After this, the three of them move to that girl to attack her, but as soon as they move, she grabs that scepter. Seeing this, Yang Yu gets scared. And then, with the help of that wand, she sent so many tentacles toward them, and those tentacles grumbled at Yang Yu and Wu Li. When the tentacles move toward Tu Shuyu, she uses her magic spell to keep that tentacle away. But her magic fails, and tentacles also grab her leg and hang her upside down. Seeing this, she asks if these tentacles are locking her spiritual ability. Then the girl happily asks if this is the Empire's power, and still those tentacles grab three of them. And then she, while holding that scepter, says with this powerful weapon, nobody can stop her. And then she points the wand up to the sky, saying, as for them, the ancient empire's survivors, their blood shall ordain the beginning of her new empire. Then she rustles her attack toward them. Seeing this, Yang Yu says this doesn't seem right, she has to find an opening. Meanwhile, someone grasps that scepter, telling the girl to stop being so noisy. Seeing this, three of them are surprised because the person holding that wand is nobody else but Sheng, who tells the girl to put that toy away. The girl angrily says where did this weird kid come from? But now, she will kill him, while those three on the other side get freed immediately from that tentacle with Sheng's presence and start falling. Yang Yu plops on the floor while Wu Li clacks on her feet, and Tu Shuyu slams on the floor. She was shocked to see them freed from the tentacle, thinking how three of them could be released so suddenly. Then she angrily looked at the wand, wondering where the power had gone and how it could be. Then the girl angrily stabs her sword into the Sheng's heart, saying she has waited 3 years for this day, and doesn't try to stop her. Seeing this, Wu Li angrily takes out her sword, saying she didn't expect her to kill an innocent. Then the girl angrily shouts, saying to Sheng he was asking to die and he can't hold her accountable. While Sheng still stands there, he smiles, saying how nostalgic he is. Then, he puts his hand on his heart. He says this reminds him of when he was named emperor. Then he says there were always dissidents who thought themselves capable enough to assassinate him. Hearing this, she angrily asked how he could make a face like that in this situation, and then she pulled her sword from his heart and cut his head with her sword while his blood splattered there. Then she laughed, saying this time he was dead while his head fell and rolled away and fell on the ground. and then his head lying on the ground, replies, "Not wrong, she is a fast learner." Then he picks up his head lying on the ground and attaches it to his neck. Seeing this, she gets petrified and falls. Then, while reattaching his head to his neck, he says one would die within 8 seconds after being stabbed in the heart, and decapitation would leave a mere 3 seconds. He then asks if the 1,000 years killing method has become swifter. Then his head is fully attached to his body, and he says to her he must thank her for broadening his horizon. She is angry and shouts, saying he is not human, and then asks who he is. After this, he tells his name and that he is the one true emperor, and then asks her if she knows her crime. Hearing this, she laughs in fear, saying there is no way the ancient emperor Xin Sheng is impossible. Seeing this, Wuli says she has heard that the emperor never died, but his form is puzzling. Then, she asks why he would be a mere child, while Tu Shuya is shocked to see all this and hold her head. However, Yang Yu tells them he is their king. Her ancestor had a bond with the emperor, and she will fight by his side. She felt something. Then she understood he was genuinely the emperor, and tears started dripping from her eyes. Moreover, the girl shuffles, saying, "What kind of joke is this? This unkillable monster, she won't die by his hand," while Xin Sheng relaxed and stood there. Meanwhile, a strong gust of wind blew, and Sheng replied that it was true, and she wouldn't die by his hands. An emperor would not sully his hands with such filthy blood. Hearing this, she looked back in fear. Meanwhile, Yang Yu takes out her weapon and moves toward the girl. Using his all-knowing eye, Sheng looks toward Yang Yu and reads her mind as she is outraged, and her level has risen from 8 to 48, and she has become entirely insane in anger. The girl turns and rustles in fear. Seeing Yang Yu there, she says her powers don't match her at all, and then, while creating her magic arrow, she tries to attack Yang Yu. Meanwhile, Yang Yu stands before her, holding a weapon. Attack that girl with her gun and cut her chest. The girl screamed in pain, and then Yang Yu attacked her again and cut her head. As soon as she attacks, the girl falls. Seeing this, Yang Yu says she has strange spiritual energy and can feel it. Seeing this, Sheng stands there and thinks he formed a bond of kinship with the Yang Yu Chong family 1,000 years ago. She awoke her spirit ability, but she has the potential to grow far beyond that. Even so, her rank rose in such a short period. Yang Yu still stands before that dead girl, holding her weapon. Then she looks toward Sheng and starts crying, saying they are his subordinates. Welcome him home, beloved emperor. Then she wiped off her tears and said the Cheng family had been waiting 1,000 years for his return. Then she tightly hugged him because she was gloppy of him. Then, while hugging him, she tells his subordinate that she wishes to fight for him even if it costs her life. She hugged him tightly. He started screaming and then requested her to wait and said, "Hugging like this, isn't this weird?" Then Wuli kneeled, holding that wand in her hands, asking honestly if she was having trouble believing it was he and if this was his wand. Sheng replies that he is not restless, and it was crafted to humiliate him. Telling this, he remembers when he stood holding that wand before people who were threatened of him. Then Sheng remembered standing there. That place was the changing room where he found the 1,000-year-old clothes of Fei Xiao Lao's son, which were buried under the dust, and it had taken a lot of effort to clean them up and find them. Then, Tu Shuya asks him where his actual throne is. Hearing this, Sheng starts thinking about his throne and asks if only 3 of his men are still alive and if a throne is still left for him. However, Yang Yu replies under his direction, they will continue to serve him faithfully. Then Sheng looks toward Yang Yu, asks to direct her, and says that conduct would be quite unbecoming of a ruler. Then he rustles, saying no good ruler paints the world in their image, and this land does not need a new ruler, so he tells 3 of them to come with him. Moreover, 3 of them walk behind him, and Yang Yu tells her teammate to let her see what the future holds for her. After this, 4 of them go to the Northern Alliance railway station, and when they enter the train, 3 people are traveling in that block. However, the staff there tells the 4 of them that there will be 3 women and 1 free ticket for children because Sheng become a child there. Then the team points ahead and tells them this, their seats are at compartment number 4 after shifting all the people to their compartment. After this, they announce that the train is about to start, so they watch out for their children's safety. Then, at Sheng's side, he is sitting in Yang Yu's cradle, and she lovingly places her hand on his head and shoulder. After this, Sheng says to them that he must seem to be gallanting the 3 of them as an observer. Yang Yu laughs, saying there is no way he is overthinking it, while Tu Shuya smiles and puts a hand over her mouth, asking, shouldn't it be okay? After this, Wuli comes to Sheng, telling His Highness they should try to spend as little as possible as they are currently low in funds. At the same time, Yang Yu pulled Tu Shuya's cheeks forcefully beside them. Sheng replies he no longer holds the right to be called their highness. Also, near the window, on the wall, a poster of the wanted girl was attached behind Sheng's back. Then Sheng looks out the window and says his empire is long gone and, with it, his title. And now he is a group leader at best. On the other side, people say to look outside quickly, and when they look outside, there is a remnant of old Asians being destroyed. However, Sheng gets enlarged and goes back to his original form. Then he tells Wooly that he never imagined a day would come when he temporarily stripped himself of his title. Looking towards Sheng, Tu Shea smiled, saying their master had grown bigger. Yang Yu shouted at her, telling her to use honorifics when talking to their master and to stop staring at his crotch. Seeing this all, Wooly thinks Sheng destroyed the ruins. But how did he do that from this far away? Yang Yu asks Sheng when their master can get his power back. While Tu Shea was crying, sitting aside because Yang Yu hit her, Sheng replied that he guessed it wouldn't matter if he told her, and then he said the name of the power called Perfect Imitation. He puts his hand on the window's side, and then, while creating slime from his hands, he says he can perfectly mimic anything within his reach. Seeing this, Tu Shuya blushes and imagines that her master is a slime, and she is shouting while sitting in the muck, and that slime binds her from all sides. Wooly stands aside. Tu Shuya asks how she does not realize how weird her imagination is. After this, as Sheng was sitting in his seat, Yang Yu came close to him, saying that's why Master's clothes weren't torn up even after being stabbed. While touching his clothes, she said back then, Master wasn't assassinated. Instead, he mimicked himself getting assassinated. Seeing this, Sheng thinks the mind of Yang Yu seems quite robust. Although he can perfectly mimic anything, in the end, he still feels most comfortable in his default form. However, the demon realm seems to have altered his default form to that of a child. But why? Then Wooly looks toward him. She says she has no doubts about Master's ability. However, it's best to talk less about their personal information. Wooly and Sheng were talking to each other while a girl was lying up on the luggage rack, listening to them. Then, Wooly told Sheng that this world was far from peaceful, and always assumed that the walls had ears. He replies there was no need to worry about the full scope of his power, which was impossible to describe with words alone. Moreover, he creates an arrow weapon and points toward the luggage rack, where the girl hides, saying this innocent Miss Outlaw merely happens to be passing by. Seeing the gun near her, the girl gets scared. After this, Yang Yu and Tu Shea stand up, shocked to see the girl hiding on the luggage racks while Wooly takes out her weapon. Then the girl jumps down and quickly grabs Sheng, then, putting a knife on his neck, tells them to drop their weapon. Otherwise, she will slit this boy's throat. Seeing this, Yang Yu sets her weapon and asks the girl if it is so. Then she would like to see her try and drop that knife, otherwise, she will roll her head. Then the girl abuses her and says she doesn't scare her, and then she asks if she thinks she won't do it. And then Sheng turns and looks at the girl, saying, "It's okay, miss, she doesn't need to be worried." Saying this, Sheng himself cut his throat with the knife that the girl was holding in her hand. Seeing this, the girl was shocked, and three were also surprised. However, half of the knife absorbs into his neck, and the girl gets scared and says her knife. Then Sheng takes the knife out of his hand, telling her she need not be concerned and he will be sure to return it to its rightful owner later. Then Yang Yu gets close to that girl and puts her weapon on that girl's neck, asking Sheng what they should do with her master. The girl gets scared and asks what they want from her, and Sheng, holding the knife in hand, replies this knife has traces of soil on it, so what's an outlaw like her doing with it? While Wooly and Tu Shea stand behind her. Then Sheng asks that girl that she is no more than a farmer's daughter who left home with a stolen knife. Hearing this, the girl is shocked and asks him what she is talking about. Then Sheng takes the poster down from the wall and starts reading it, then says that she is an innocent and weak girl, yet somehow she killed several armed soldiers. It was written on the poster that a violent tax resistance killed several Steel Art City soldiers suspected of helping Shan Lin Xiao to revolt. If anyone provided Steel Art City with important information about the suspect, they could be rewarded with a maximum of 5 million yuan. After reading that poster, he looks toward the girl, saying he thinks he found a place needing a new king. Meanwhile, the security alarm started ringing, and from the control room, they announced that warning safety hazards were detected in compartment number 4. Then, the security guards run toward compartment number 4. Standing near the door, Sheng tells them that the guards are on the way, that he will take care of it, and that he orders them to stay in the compartment. Hearing this, both Wooly and Tu Shea nod in yes. While Yang Yu was standing there with her weapon on that girl's neck, the guards slammed the door and entered there, holding their gun and pointing it toward Wooly, Tu Shea, Yang Yu, and that girl. They said nobody moved and stayed right where they were, while one of the guards looking toward that girl said he recognized her. She is Wang Ming, and she is the one with 5 million bounty. Hearing this, the girl gets scared. Also Yang Yu stands with her putting her weapon on Wang Ming's neck. Then the guard says that 5 million is there as soon as they give her head to the mayor. Hearing the guard's words, Sheng thinks money is something that grants wishes, and that's why the world currency has always been referred to as yuan. 1,000 years have passed, and yet money remains the same. Then Sheng asks Wuli how much 5 million is worth these days, and she stands beside him and replies that a typical soldier earns around 1 million per year, so 5 million should count as quite a fortune. After this, the guard pointed his gun toward Tushea, saying everyone else needed to get out right now, and he would arrest her along with the criminal. Hearing this, she got scared and started crying. Then, both guards smiled as one of them stood there, pointing a gun toward them. The other one stood beside him and told him to wait a minute, let's do that. Maybe they would get a double reward. Then, from behind, he clicked the button of his gun. Hearing this, Sheng smiles and says he sees it's that easy to get money in this city. Then he quickly goes near Wang Ming, grabs her hands from behind, and puts the knife on her neck. Then, he says the criminal head belongs to him. Yang Yu and the guards are surprised to hear this. After this, Sheng looking toward Wang asks the guards so why he should hand her over to them, and then smiles, saying if 1 slash gets him 5 million, say no more. However, the guard fires angrily, asking this little boy how he dares to steal food from their mouth. Both the guards fire toward Sheng, and he extends his hand, the bullet from their guns piercing Sheng's hands and neck. The blood starts flowing from his neck, and he is about to fall. Seeing this, Yang Yu shockingly calls Master. After this, he slammed down and sank into blood, and some of his blood got on Yang Yu's face, and she stood there silently watching. Seeing this, the guard laughs, saying 1 criminal down, and his companion, the second guard, tells him to keep shooting at them. Suddenly, the girl that Yang Yu killed appears and starts throwing blades at the guards while the guards thud. But the girl kills them, and Yang Yu stands behind her, holding a weapon. Yang Yu stands behind that girl, using her spiritual powers, and says the punishment for slaying a king is death. Seeing this, Tushea surprisingly puts a hand on her mouth, asking Yang Yu if she can summon the spirit she absorbed before. Then Wuli says this isn't good, thanks to the alarm. The next station will have heavily armed soldiers waiting for them. Yang Yu tells her they must get off now. After this, Wuli takes out her sword, saying she guessed this is the only way, and with her magic sword, she makes 2 cuts. However, a big part of the train breaks and falls, and people from compartment 4 jump off. Wang Ming fell in the air, crying, saying that she was going to die, while Wuli and Tushea were also falling in the air. After reaching the ground, Wuli kneeled, and Tushea using her magic, made Wang Ming float in the air, and then Wang thud on the floor. Tushea, while swooshing on the basis, says to Wang she won't fall to death because she is a spirit user. However, Yang Yu was sitting on the ground holding Sheng's head, calling him while Sheng was unconsciously lying injured there, and much of his blood spilled on the floor. She starts crying, holding his bloody hand and saying she has failed to protect him. Please punish her heavily. He opens his eyes, saying he is alright and this isn't her fault, while blood is flowing from his mouth. Then he looked aside toward Wang Ming and asked her if she probably had a hideout that she was trying to get to know, and requested her to bring them with her. Hearing this, she gets sad, and then Yang Yu sits beside him and tells Sheng that they are all on the same side. Now that they have killed soldiers from the city, they have the power to protect him. Also, Tushea sits beside Sheng while Wuli stands behind them. However, Sheng's body was bleeding profusely, and Yang Yu was sitting with her hand near his neck. Sheng closed his eyes and asked if that was now good, and Yang Yu, while crying, said, "Master, no, he can't die." The Chong family had stayed in the old capital for millennia because they believed he would return one day, and she didn't want to lose him again. Wang Min stands aside, looking towards Sheng. Think with this amount of blood loss, he is a goner. But he said he wanted her head, so why did he block the bullets for her? Is this guy an idiot? Then Wang replies, telling everyone okay. She promises him while Yang Yu cries, putting her head on top of him. Wuli and Shea too start looking toward Wang Ming. Then she sat beside Sheng, saying she would take them with her to safety. Rest assured, Sheng smiled and thanked her. Suddenly, Sheng sits up and says, "Now then, let's see this." The girl gets shocked, thinking he is about to die, and then she falls back and starts screaming in fear. After this, Wang shouts angrily, pointing toward him and saying he tricked her. Sheng replies is wrong. He accidentally uses perfect imitation too seriously, and then suddenly, blood on his clothes and bullet spots start to disappear. He stands up, looking toward Yang Yu, and says he didn't think he could even trick those who already knew his ability. Then he asks, is this what it feels like to be loved by millions? Wuli replied that the moment the bullets hit him looked too real, and Tushea laughed, saying she also got tricked by him. Yang Yu stood up, holding tears in her eyes, ran toward him, called master, and hugged him tightly, saying he was alright. This was great. Tears were flowing from her eyes due to excitement. While Shang asks her to let go of him, does she want to suffocate him to death? Yongyu doesn't let go of him and sadly says, "Master, can he not use perfect imitation to fake his death again?" She is already scared of losing him. Then he gently pulls her back from him and tells her he is just testing his powers. He doesn't have a hobby of faking his death. And then, looking toward Yongyu, he says she should trust him more, and he is a lot more omnipotent than she thinks. She smiles and replies she will trust him, master. Meanwhile, Wang sneaks away from there, thinking that they keep chatting about their master and servant love. She will be on her way now. But Sheng puts her hand on her shoulder from behind, saying, "Big sister Wang, she has got some nimble legs there," and she stops there in fear. Then she started running away again, but he grabbed her and told her to look. He became a man flag, and she angrily looked at him. Then she stops there tiredly, and he sits on her back and asks didn't his significant sister promise to take him to a safe place. She won't break her promise. Wang Ming turned and asked him if he had lied to her and how she was supposed to trust a liar. He replied, asking who is a liar, and he was sure he had never lied to her. Also, he tells her that he is fine and to please take them with her, and those are all honest words. Hearing this, she remembered his words, and he said the exact words to her that he was saying now. Surprisingly, she thought his words seemed genuine, and she had nothing to fight back with. Then he raises his hands, telling her to let go, and she takes them. As soon as they arrive at their destination there, Wang Ming's mother gets surprised to see them. She surprisingly asks her about them. Then Wang tells her that they are her friends and they are also a victim of Claw's underlings from Gangi City. After this, Wang introduces her mother to them, telling them this is her mom surnamed Li. Sheng, looking toward her, says then Mrs. Li. Then Tu Shea smiles and says Auntie Li, nice to meet her, and Wu Li says being called auntie while looking so young wouldn't be too rude. Then Li yelled at her daughter, saying that she brought a man home and this was the first time she had done so. Wang replied that he was just a kid. He was not counted as a man, and also, this was not their home, it's a shelter. Then Li goes close to Shen, asking her daughter if she may be introducing her to him as a partner to remarry. Hearing this, Wang shouts, replying there is no way she is doing that. Yongyu goes near Wang and asks her in a low voice if her mother is all alright because it seems like there is something wrong with her. Wang says her dad passed away a little too early, and her mom just recently discovered that she is becoming old, so she wants to remarry quickly. Then Sheng extends his hand toward Li, saying nice to meet her, and then briefly introduces himself and says he will be in her care. Then Li holds his hand lovingly and replies if he is willing to marry her, taking care of him for the rest of her life won't be a problem. Then Sheng talks about his age, and she excitedly replies that age is not a problem as long as there is love, age is not a problem. Then Sheng says if you were to choose a partner, the condition might be pretty strict, but she lovingly replies it may be embarrassing to say this, but she is highly skilled in acting. See this, blood starts coming out of Wang's mouth while Tu Shea claps, saying this battle is quite intense, and Wu Li stands behind and says to Wang she doesn't know if the Lord is better than her mother. The Yongyu, looking toward Wang, asks to come to think of it, why did she rebel against Gangi City? Wang replies Gangi City doesn't keep their word. Instead, they send soldiers to threaten them, wanting to take away her home and the farm. Not only that, but Gangi City's lord even wants her whole family to die. Sheng is standing next to Li, at a distance from Wang and Yongyu, but he is listening to all their conversation. On the other side, a man named Baowen sees Sheng's shoes printed with a flashlight, and then he gets up. Thinking he found it, he tells his soldier to conceal all sounds and prepare to capture the criminal. After this, Wang and her mother, Li, stand near the cave, where Wang tells them about that day, when the Gangi City captain, Zhang Baowen, suddenly brought soldiers to her home and wanted to take away her family farm by force. Then in the back of the story there, in the forest, Wang stands before her mother to protect her from the soldiers, and her mother is sitting there on the ground. She says that after seeing them not being cooperative, they immediately pointed their guns at them and aimed to kill them. But the guardian of this land suddenly appeared, knocking all the soldiers out. However, the city captain Baowen still escaped. After that, she was listed in the wanted list, and that city guardian killed the soldiers. Hearing this, Tu Shea asks about guardians who still exist. Wang clenches her fist and replies that's right, every generation of the people who lived there believed in the protection of the guardian, and their home is at the foot of the mountain. She wouldn't have dared to hide out there if it weren't for the guardian. On the way to their home to protect her mother while she entered the mountain, she drew the pursuers' attention. The guardians didn't help. So, the guardian activity range must be around the mountain. Then Sheng asks Wang, and she decides to rely on her so-called god to protect her from harm. but it seems like some people won't let her do as she wishes. On the other side, the man using a flashlight to find Sheng's shoe prints was Gangyi City Captain Zhang Baowen, and he arrived with his soldiers where they were all standing and talking. After arriving there, Zhang Baowen asks if he discovered them, and it seems he can't ambush them anymore. Then, he will openly look at them while they beg for mercy. Seeing Baowen there, Wang angrily asks how dare he come back, and it seems like he hasn't received enough punishment from the Guardian. Hearing her words, Baowen laughs, saying, "That Guardian." Saying this, he removes the mirror from his coat and then directs it to them while the demon spirit emerges from it. While using that mirror, he asks Wang if she refers to this demon spirit. Seeing this, Wang gets scared, saying this is impossible, then shockingly asks him how he can control the Guardian. Baowen smiles, showing that mirror to her, and tells the city superior gave him this precious baby, and from now on, the demon spirit she relied on can only obey him. Then he directs that mirror toward Wang, saying now it's time for her and her friends to feel its power, and that demon spirit moved to attack Wang. Before that demon spirit attacks, her Yangyu comes over, holds Wang back, and saves her from the demon spirit attack, asking if she is alright. After this, Yangyu stands there after saving Wang, thinking the demon spirit doesn't have any physical attack effect. It's a spiritual type. Meanwhile, Tushea attacks that demon spirit using her magic power. Seeing this demon spirit get alert and move toward Tushea, she punches and mishits her. Tushea falls away, telling her that the attack is ineffective and this demon's spirit level is much higher than hers. However, Wooly comes near Tushea and holds her, asking if she is alright. When the demon spirit punches Tushea, a dark aura emerges from that part of her body, and the demon spirit stands before Wooly and Tushea. Then Tushea replies, Wooly saying it's a spiritual attack, the kind where it will last forever, and the good thing it was. She was hit by it, and people from the Spirit Fox clan like her will be fine after some rest. After this, Wooly looks towards Sheng, asking His Majesty if she should attack. Meanwhile, Wang and Yangyu go near Wooly and Tushea. Standing in the distance, Sheng replies that they won't be able to handle it. They can retreat. First, while Li holds Sheng, stands with her chest on his head, and asks him if she is so scared and if he will protect her. He replies she needs to release her hands first so he can save her. Hearing this, she happily put her hand back, saying she would let go then, but still, her chest was on his head. Then he said, and also the one on top of his head. Hear this, Baowen laughs, pointing towards Sheng, asking the shorty to dare to say such big words to stop bluffing. Meanwhile, Sheng comes from behind and sits on Baowen's shoulder, asking who he is shorty and then holding Baowen's head. Sheng asks if he seems shorter than him. Seeing this, Baowen angrily attacks Sheng with his mirror, asking when he can come and sit on him, but Sheng jumps down and saves himself. After this, he directs his mirror towards Sheng, saying how dare he toy with and get rid of him. Then, a demon spirit emerges from that mirror, comes near Sheng, and stops while Sheng stands there with his hands tied behind his back. Yangyu, standing behind, says, Master, be careful. However, the demon spirit comes near and punches Sheng, but its attack doesn't affect Sheng. Seeing this, Baowen gets shocked, asking how it could be possible. After this, Sheng lovingly puts his hand on the demon spirit's head, and the demon spirit turns into a girl. Then Sheng tells her his original soul. Sheng lovingly placed a hand on her head and held him. She stood near him in the air while looking into his eyes. After this, Sheng tells Baowen about the demon spirit, explaining that original souls are not born from any living beings. Instead, they have natural spiritual bodies that let them roam the universe. They ignore all laws of physics and eat spirit as their food. They have no natural enemies, and the original soul is weak against one specific thing. It is a material that comes from the universe and doesn't change forms, and it is called a cosmic shard. He then looks toward Baowen, who stands there holding the mirror. Sheng says that his little mirror contains a precious piece of it. However, Baowen directs the mirror towards Sheng to attack him, angrily saying this treasured secret isn't something he can randomly guess. He runs the mirror toward him, but the demon spirit doesn't move, and she stands still in the air. Seeing this, Baowen shouts at her, asking what she is doing. Is she disobeying his order? Hearing this, she gets confused, and sometimes she looks at Sheng and sometimes at Baowen. Seeing this, Sheng says it's expected that she is confused. He will release some of his perfect imitations, then use the representation, and his eye starts shining. The demon spirit looks into his eye, and Sheng asks her how she now recognizes him. See this, her eyes shine, she remembers everything, and then she comes towards Sheng. He holds her face lovingly, and they both start kissing, but Sheng's face doesn't show any expression during kissing. Seeing this, Yang Yu gets shocked while Wang, her mother, stands behind, watching them, and Sheng, during a kiss, absorbs her. Baowen is surprised. His soldier standing behind him is surprised, and Baowen angrily asks Sheng if he ate the demon spirit, and what exactly he is. Sheng replies he is just returning her to where she rightfully belongs, and that demon spirit stands beside Sheng in the air. Sheng looks toward her, saying welcome back to the venerable Emperor's guard, Deathbird. Even though 1,000 years have passed, and she seems the same now, the demon spirit has come to her original place, where she belongs. Her name was Deathbird, and she had a high savage rank, 99. Seeing this, Wooly asks if Master's motive for coming there was for this original spirit, and also, she holds to Shea because she is still in pain. After this, Sheng moves toward Baowen. Also, the Deathbird is with him, and Sheng replies, well, that's right. After carefully calculating all the people who served him, he realizes that he is the only one who wouldn't die even after 1,000 years, and who won't leave the kingdom too far away is the Deathbird. As Sheng stepped forward toward Baowen, he stepped back in fear. Sheng stopped there, telling when he was being held hostage by Wang. The spiritual power he used to connect with those who served him gave a light reaction, so he knew that she had come in contact with the Deathbird. Meanwhile, the mark on Sheng's arm starts shining. Hearing this, Yang Yu surprisingly asks, so he has been planning it since then. Wang stands beside them, folding her arms and saying her body suddenly gets goosebumps. Then Sheng looked at Deathbird, asking why she looked uncomfortable, and tears came to her eyes. Sheng put a hand on her head and read her mind, asking if it was because that man tricked her, and then Sheng relaxed her, saying he was gone for too long. It's normal for her to think that Cosmic Shard was him. Baowen keeps that mirror in his coat and holds his hand behind his back, asking Sheng so what if he has some original spirit. Saying this, he takes out the gun. He fires towards Sheng, saying as long as he kills him, the demon spirit will be back under his control, and the gun he brought with him this time is a short-range guided gun. The bullet will change its trajectory and avoid all obstacles to hit its target successfully. The shot goes towards Sheng and suddenly stops near him. Seeing this, Baowen says even if the bullet stopped, there would still be a lot of poison inside it, and its force can also easily penetrate armor. He smiles, saying to Sheng that their little face is about to have a hole in it. But the bullet still stopped there, and Sheng relaxed and stood there, and the Deathbird also stood beside him in the air. Seeing this, Baowen gets shocked and says it's impossible. Surprisingly, he asks why it isn't hitting his face even though the poison inside isn't activated. The bullet stops near Sheng's face, and he replies this must be one of the most popular weapons of this year. And the speed is indeed quick, but he has already seen it all before. His facial hair stops that bullet, and he says it's just that its forces are still somewhat weak. Seeing this, Baowen runs from there, thinking he will die if he doesn't run now. Seeing this, his soldier is surprised, and Sheng says to Deathbird he will let her handle it, and she runs behind Baowen. The Deathbird hit him so hard from the back and removed his soul from his body, and he fell to the ground. A black aura started coming out of his body, and the Deathbird hit him. Sheng comes near Baowen's body, saying it seems like the Gangi city captain is only this week, which will be interesting, and says a humanized dragon from the dragon tribe, a humanized beast from the beast tribe, a human-turned monster, and a normal-looking human when Li comes and holds Sheng tightly from behind. Seeing this, Wang stands aside and has her head. On the other side, Yang Yu, with her magic, controls 2 soldiers, and these 2 more soldiers become her servants. She orders them to kill other soldiers. Meanwhile, Wooly, holding 2 Shea, stands behind Yang Yu, watching all this. However, a woman watching all this in a transparent crystal globe looks towards Sheng, whom Li is holding tightly. The woman thinks he will regret getting in her way. After this, Sheng stands there, and Wang sits down on the ground, exhausted, asking Sheng may she knows what his excellent plan to do next. While thinking, not only was he able to fake his death, but he was also able to tame the guardian of this land. She still didn't realize he was this powerful. Is she blind? Then Sheng approaches her, holding her face, and says get up. Then he tells her he is just a wanderer without any status, he can't take this kneel. Then, while looking at Li and Wang, he says both of them were already chased out of their homeland. But Gangi City still wants to take their lives. Baowen has also tried to take their lives more than once, then asks if there is any particular reason for it. Wang, with a sad face, replies, who knows, maybe it's just the city lord's nature to be this cruel, so she orders them to do so. Sheng closes his one eye, folding arms, and replies that it is unnecessary. Maybe there is some secret they don't want them to leak, so they plan to end their lives to feel at ease and ask him to go to their house tomorrow to check the problem. Then Wang says she is okay with it, but there is at least S group of Gangi City soldiers surrounding their home, and she is afraid. Then Sheng asks the death bird if she can scare the soldier away. When the time comes, she nods yes, and Wang stands aside, says okay, then pretends she didn't say anything. After this, at night time, Wang Li and Yang Yu all were sleeping, and Tu Xie lay aside them, and her body was shining. At the same time, Sheng sat on the small hill under the shadow of the sky, looking toward the moon and thinking it had been a long time since he had seen the moonlight. He could even tell if it was daytime or nighttime inside the demon boundary, and he missed this feeling. Meanwhile, Tu Xie comes there, and, standing near his legs, he surprisingly looks toward her. Then she holds his legs and asks what she does because she can't fall asleep. He replies that the death bird damaged her spirits during the day, and then asks her if she shouldn't be resting. She lovingly looks toward him, putting a finger on her lips, and replies, but the healing process is too long and painful, and she can't stand it anymore. After this, she came close to him and sat on his legs, asking if he knew what type of boys she liked. Then, while holding him, she asked if he could satisfy her for a bit. Sheng replies, looking aside, thinking about it. If he strikes first, she won't have to get hurt. If it's like that, then he will satisfy her. Then he put a hand on her head, and she closed her eyes and told her the power of the spirit fox's tribe, which all comes from the happiness secreted from the brain. He only needs some nerve cells created from his perfect imitation, and then he can stimulate the brain to secrete more. And the spirit fox tribe doesn't even need to eat and sleep. If happiness is abundant in the brain, they can become more assertive. Telling this, Sheng touched her ear and sent some mimicry in her ear while she sat on his legs, closing her eyes. Then, suddenly, she felt pain, and her vision and mouth started to water due to the pain, and then she fell on him. Sheng, holding her, thinks her spirit is healed and even leveled up by 2 just from the happiness. However, her spirit fox tribe level increased from 36 to 38, and her rank became more substantial than before. Meanwhile, someone called him, and he surprisingly looked there, and this was Yang Yu. Seeing Tu Xie sitting on him, she angrily shouted, asking at this late already what are they still doing there instead of sleeping. As she was angry, Sheng replied that he didn't need any sleep without listening to them. Yang Yu held them both and hung them upside down angrily, saying it was already midnight, and he came out with this fox. She won't forgive him even if it's he, her master, while he looks toward her, thinking she didn't even let him explain. And Yang Yu, why is she so mad? The following day, Wang takes them to the area of her home. As they are watching the guards behind the tree outside her house, Wang tells them her home is just around there, and as expected, the soldiers are still roaming around. Then Sheng turns, telling Deathbirth that he will leave it to her while Yang Yu stands beside him, holding his arm. Sheng asks her if she has been like this since this morning and what she is doing, and she angrily looks toward him while Tu Xie stands behind and laughs. Wuli stands aside. She is surprised because she doesn't know which matter they are discussing. Then Yang Yu replies she is looking after Master and she doesn't want Master to get tricked. He looks toward her, using his eye of wisdom. He read her mind, and the same things were still going through her mind. The kissing scene with Deathbird and the previous night's scene when Tu Xie was sitting on him. Yang Yu, folding her arm angrily, stands there, looking aside. Sheng looks toward her, thinking, what is up with this child's brain? Is she on her heat period? Then he goes from there, telling the Deathbird that has already cleared the soldiers, let go and check it out. Tu Shuya and Wuli also follow him, and Tu Shuya moves from there, laughing while Yang Yu shouts behind to wait and take her with them. After this, they arrive at her home. As soon as they entered, they were surprised to see a vast machine. Seeing this, Sheng asks what this thing is. Even though it's his first time visiting it, there is no doubt that it's an exploration machine. And then says this is too obvious. An ordinary person's only crime is to carry a jade. No wonder they wanted their lives. Hearing this, Wang stands aside and looks toward him, asking what he means. She still doesn't understand. He replies if his guess is correct, the mineral under her home is what Gangyi City currently needs, and they don't want anyone to know something this good of a weapon for the military. After this, from the ground on which he stands, he sends his mimicry inside, and his mimicry enters into it and hits a lot of gold. Suddenly, everything starts to shake, and Tu Xie starts flying in the air with her spiritual power. Wuli asks if this is an earthquake. Meanwhile, a massive mountain of gold emerges from the ground, so big that everyone standing before seems very small. Then, while touching the gold mountain, Sheng says it's celestial bronze, a rare mineral that can minimize the size of heavy weaponry and make them safer. Then Sheng looks up to the mountain, telling Gangyi City that he is planning a war and has already seen many tedious battles. Then Sheng says that one of the most hated facts about them is the concept of those mediocre people who underestimate the war, spouting justice in their mouths, but in reality, it's just a game to rob the weak. After leaving the world for 1,000 years, his biggest regret was not being able to discipline the weaker ones, letting them think they have the power to conquer, and if it were his mistake, he would have to fix it with his 2 hands. Saying this, he touches the colossal mountain and releases his mimicry from his hand, which spreads all over the hill, and then he absorbs that colossal mountain. Seeing this, Wooly surprisingly asked if he had stored everything. All these mine rails weigh at least a few million tons, and 2 Shea stood beside her, shocked. Then he looks back, saying, now that they have the advantage of the negotiation, let's make a trip to Gangying City. They should see what the City Lord plans to do. However, in Gangying City, City Lord Ducini, lying on the couch, says to the City Lord's senior advisor Kizai that Baowen went outside the city yesterday to take the Wang family's land, but he still hasn't returned, and then she asks if Madame Qi knows what happened. Qi replies, wait a minute, she will use divine magic, and then, with the help of her magic, she creates a magic globe. Looking toward her, Ducini smiles and thinks, as expected, it's not enough to rely on technology. Having a person with the power of the demon boundary is necessary. Then, while watching everything on the globe, Qi shockingly says how this could happen. Captain Baowen has been murdered. Listening to this, Ducini gets shocked and asks who dares to kill the people of her Gangying City. He gives an evil smile, thinking it's just a spirit aberration. But to the City Lord, it's no different from a dead person. Then she stands up, showing Ducini everything with the help of her magic globe, and tells her to look at this City Lord. These people are the culprits and have already arrived at Gangying City. Then she watched everything on the screen and angrily stood up, extending her hand, saying a bunch of unruly people dare to interrupt such an essential matter of hers. Then she orders her guard to get them to her. He slightly bent down before her, telling her to calm down. City Lord, don't forget that they must keep this matter a secret. Even if Baowen has failed, their plan can proceed as usual while smiling and putting a hand on her face. Ducini replies that the Wang family's land, aside from it having celestial frozen from the findings of her divine magic, also has a record that they need to go through for their plan. If Gangying City doesn't finish them quickly, she is afraid some accident might happen. But Qi still puts a hand on her face, smiles, and replies, it's okay if they take the land later, but about these uninvited guests, they will need to make them disappear today. On the other side, Li happily puts her hand on her face and tells Sheng that she didn't think they would have a date just after the 2-day meeting. Then she blushed and put her hand on her mouth, saying that he also purposely sent her daughter away, and it seemed like some exciting events would happen tonight. Hearing this, Sheng replies Ling Yuan is a wanted criminal there, so he lets her and Tu Shuya guard the house. Moreover, Yang Yu and Wooly stand behind him, and then Wooly asks why did Wang have to be accompanied by Tu Shuya didn't recover. After this, Yang Yu, in her imagination, thinks Tu Shuya and Li are happily talking to each other. Considering this, she replies to Wooly that if they let her and Madame Li stay, no matter how she looks, it is far from good. Wooly agrees with her, and then Sheng says after they reach the City Lord's mansion, he hopes that Li can go according to plan. Li smiles and replies to Sheng that he doesn't have to worry because she is just joking when she says she is very good at acting, which is for them, the mother and daughter pair. After some hours, they move to Gangying City. While on the way, they stay there for some time. Li points toward the restaurant and says, now that it's an afternoon break, why not rest briefly? Then Yang Yu looks around the crowd and says there are so many people there, what if something dangerous happens? After this, they go into the restaurant. While holding the back of a chair, Sheng replies to Yang Yu that he likes her cautiousness, but with the deaf bird there, any sign of hostility towards them can be detected immediately. Also, the deaf bird was with them, and she was sitting on Sheng's back, hearing Sheng's words. Yang Yu blushed, asking if he liked her. Wooly stood her back and replied, asking if she had only listened to the first few words. However, in the restaurant, the head of staff pointed toward the table on which tea jugs and glasses were welcomed, saying to use the menu on the top of the table. The tea there is complimentary. After this, Li starts drinking tea while taking tea. She says after rushing for the whole morning, she can finally get some drinks. As soon as Sheng holds the cup of tea, his mimicry starts to release from his hand into the cup, and he sees his reflection in the cup and feels something strange. After this, he pretends to drink that tea, then smiles, saying it seems like someone doesn't welcome them in Gangying City. Then he put the tea glass on the table, telling them the dinner was over and they should go now. Someone was standing behind, secretly watching them. They exited the restaurant afterward. Yang Yu, on the way, surprisingly says to Sheng that they haven't eaten anything yet. Sheng touches Li's back, and his hand gets blue. Then he replies to Yang Yu that essential matters come first, and she can eat to her heart's content while Deathbird sits on Sheng's back, looking all around to protect them. Li gets excited and blushes, telling Sheng to think that he took this chance to touch his bottom. It turns out he can't take it anymore, Sheng replies. He just gently pushes her waist. Then, they moved ahead. Sheng was confused thinking, but the deaf bird felt no hostility. What method did they use to find them? Is it the power of technology and the demon boundary, and perhaps they use some way to block the deaf bird's detection? Meanwhile, Gangyi City Troops Commander Beowu from their back says to the three ladies and the boy in front, "Please stop." Hearing this, they stop and turn back, and then he briefly introduces himself and says he has a question to ask, and he hopes they can answer him. After this, Beowu says he heard from Madame Qi that his brother was killed with sorcery by a boy whom some ladies accompanied on a small mountain at the north border. Then Sheng, scratching his head, replies he is right and the information he got was relatively quick. Beowu angrily asks if he dares to walk into Gangyi City so boldly that he thinks their soldiers are getting their meals for free. Seeing this, Wuli gets into action and takes out her sword, saying he is going against an opponent he can't defeat. She advises him to leave now. Beowu smiles, saying her power is indeed not weak, but only if they are not poisoned. Yongyu and Li get scared, asking if the tea poisoned Beowu, setting his hair and keeping it away from his eye smile. Telling Madame Qi that she is clever in her schemes after taking them back, he will need to thank her. After this, Sheng smiled and asked him, and then Madame Qi poisoned the tea. Sheng raised his hand, and all the poison came out. Then he smilingly asks, after getting rid of him, will he be able to meet this Madame Qi? Seeing this, Wuli stood aside surprisingly, thinking they had drunk all of the tea they drank earlier. Those 4 glasses of tea, so why would it be in her lord's hands right now? After this, Beowu, taking out a smog bomb from his jacket angrily, says to be obedient and surrender. Otherwise, they will be responsible for their casualties. Seeing this, Sheng surprisingly looks toward Beowu and thinks he doesn't even notice what he just revealed. And it seems like he is certainly not one of the perpetrators, but only a passerby who just happened to know about it. And he said he wanted to arrest them, but he probably didn't expect that the poison would turn out to be so lethal. However, Sheng tells Yongyu and Li not to be scared as Beowu mentioned the poison only to make them confused, and then he orders Wuli to beat him up. Then Wuli awakened her powers and took out her swords, telling him to leave this Beowu to her. On the other side, Beowu ran toward them to attack, saying, "Still dare to resist the thick-headed loser." Saying this, he throws a hypnotic bomb toward them. Seeing this, Yongyu gets scared, puts a hand on her nose, and says it's a bomb. Be careful, everyone, not to breathe in it. Moreover, Wuli cutting out the air with her sword says it's unnecessary. Seeing this, Beowu surprisingly thinks she can still wield her sword to cut off the airflow like that. How could she still possess this amount of strength even after being poisoned? Then Beowu starts disappearing in the smoke, saying, however, this is no ordinary hypnotic bomb. He has taken the antibody medicine in advance so he won't let them run away. However, Yongyu, surprisingly, looks around, telling Beowu that he has disappeared and must be using the camouflage clothes specially made to go along with the smoke. And then she tells them all to be careful, while Beowu is hiding in the smoke, listening to their conversation. Then looking toward Yongyu thinks this kitten-ear woman is very knowledgeable. She must be their leader. Then he ran toward them, holding his gun, thinking he must catch their leader first. On the other side, Wuli, holding her sword, takes a deep breath, then roars her dragon sword and attacks Beowu, and throw him away, and then while falling, he thinks, the hell is this strength? At the very least, it must be at level 70 savage rank. And this is his last trump card, he must put his all in it, and then he fires his gun. And then all those bullets coming at them very fast. Wuli sees this and says, bring it on. She takes out her sword and moves very fast, and then she puts her sword in, saying this is the end. However, she collected all those bullets on her sword. Seeing this, Beowu surprisingly says she only used the hilt to block him, and then Wuli turns her head while looking toward Sheng. She asks the Lord if he already lost his will to fight and how she should handle him. Shen, looking toward Beowu, replies he came there to cause trouble, so the safest way to take him is to let him face his demise. Suddenly, Sheng felt something strange in his body. Then, while putting his hand on his heart, he thought, what's his body, and why is the power of the mystery of life starting to surge so suddenly? Then, putting his hand on his heart and closing his eyes, he thinks something from the mystery of life is getting into his head, engaging with his resolve. However, Yongyu, from behind, asks him if he is alright. He replies she doesn't have to worry. Then he tells Beowu that the matter has come to this point. He will have no chance to escape if he doesn't leave. Beowu listens to him and asks him to leave. He says, then replies, telling him he is the commander of Gangyi City troops. If he leaves, he will ensure the safety of the people. He must fulfill his duties no matter what, even if he will come to his demise. Madam Qi and the city lord will punish them according to the law. Furthermore, by carelessly walking close to him, Beowu asks he is indeed not afraid of death. Sheng, standing at some distance, puts a hand on Beowu's head and replies he would be happy if he had what it takes to kill him. Beowu smiles and says there are at least hundreds of evildoers he has died at this distance, and he doesn't even need a weapon to kill him. Hearing this, Sheng smiles while Beowu looks toward him and thinks, though he has said it like that, why does he feel a sense of absolute dominance coming out of him? And he can't even lift his hand to land him a single hit. Then he closed his eyes, thinking it was the end for him. Will he die in this boy's hands? At the very least, he didn't eat his own words. He doesn't have to worry about breaking in a humiliating way. Suddenly, Sheng asks Beowu if he is genuinely unbelievably good and if he needs to surrender obediently. Then, hearing this, Beowu, Yongyu and Wuli are surprised. After this, Sheng took hold of Beowu's arm and lifted him off the ground, saying he would like to know if he enforced the law fairly, then asked how he would handle criminals like them. Hearing this, Beowu, heading down, replies that he doesn't need to console him anymore and that they are the criminals Madam Qi is looking for. If they are arrested, naturally, Madam Qi will personally interrogate them all. However, Sheng, putting their hand on Beowu's shoulder, says they will trouble him to show them the way and bring them to that person. Then Sheng moves ahead, telling Beowu his brother isn't dead yet, they are still in the mountain, so he can see them for himself after this matter is resolved. Hearing this, Beowu surprisingly turned his head to look at Sheng. Then Sheng says if he cooperates well, he will probably be able to have his brother back safely. Beowu gets angry hearing this and angrily asks Sheng if he knows he is threatening him. Sheng turns back and replies that, on the contrary, he is inviting him to be a witness to the personality of the present king of Gangyi City, and to see for himself if she is worth it for him to be acting this righteously. On the other side, Qi was watching this in her magic globe, and then she angrily said, Beowu, this idiot has also failed to accomplish the mission, and it looks like it's time to report to the city lord to ask her to handle this matter personally. After this, Beowu returns to the city lord's mansion. There, he kneels before the city lord and greets her. Seeing him there, Ducini asked if there was a matter he wanted to report, as he could see she was swamped right now, as she was lying on the couch holding paper in hand and Qi was sitting beside her. Beowu noticed that the northern suburbs were planning to sell their land in Gangyi City. He came to report this because, previously, she had shown interest in that piece of land. Hearing this, Ducini looks toward Qi, asking her opinion. Qi smiles and replies that Her Highness can invite that person to discuss it. That way, she will naturally know the answer. How is it? Then she makes a weird face, telling her it is also time to make the complete preparations. Beowu listens to them but remains silent. Qi orders him to bring them to the living room of the city lord's official residence. After this, Beowu brings them there. Sheng and Li sit there while Wuli stands by Sheng's side, and Li looks around in fear. She asked how it had come to this as she never would have thought that a small person like her would be able to meet the city lord herself. And what if she messes things up this time? Hearing this, Sheng put a hand on Li's hand, saying don't worry, even if she messes up, she will still have him there. Hearing this, Li blushed and lovingly replied that after this meeting, let's go back to their hometown and hold their marriage there while Sheng requested her to calm down a little. However, the city lord arrived there. After coming there, she sat on her couch, saying as she heard that someone was selling a piece of land that the city lord's residence was interested in. After this, she lies down with her legs on the couch arm, asking if she is qualified enough to participate while Qi and Beowu stand on both sides of her couch. After this, Li slightly bent down before her, saying first she thanked the city lord for inviting them, and then she said it was a pleasure to meet her. Seeing them there, Qi feels something strange and thinks this group of idiots seems to have one less person in it. Then Li goes back and sits in her place, telling her she is Li Shi from the Wang clan. Her late husband passed away a long time ago, and the only daughter she had also died tragically in a battle. She is a lone soul who is finding it challenging to decide. Fortunately, her late husband's family sent her a person to represent her in her decision. Hearing this, Ducini, looking towards Sheng, asks if he is the representative she is talking about. Then she asks with a smile what price he wants to sell the land for. Sheng points his finger that to seeing this, Ducini asked to see Yuan as a deserted wasteland on the border. This amount of price is quite suitable. Meanwhile, Qi, standing at Ducini's back, says no, Her Highness might have misunderstood something. Then Ducini surprisingly asks Qi if it is 2 million yuan unless it has created a marketplace. How could it be worth 2 million yuan? Qi makes a weird face, telling Ducini if her guess isn't wrong, the price he is offering must be 200 million yuan. Hearing this, Ducini shockingly asks for 200 million yuan. Then Qi, looking towards Sheng, asks him if the underground had been excavated into the celestial bronze mine. Little kid, and to the point where it could make him dare to spout such nonsense. Sheng looks toward her in return and asks if she must be Madame Qi if he is right, and no wonder she was good enough at predicting his offering price. She truly has the power of divination. Hearing this, Qi smiles, and Sheng replies, telling Qi it is too bad she slightly missed the prediction. It's not 200 million yuan, it's 20 billion yuan, and it is not even the price of its mineral resources. Hearing this, Ducini and Qi are shocked and furious. Saying this, Sheng stands up, holding his weapon, and says he wants them to pay for all the military expenses for the war they plan to launch. Hearing this, Ducini, in anger, breaks her necklace and then angrily asks Sheng how could a lowlife like his dare to act with such impudence in her residence. Then she gets up and takes out her weapon, which makes her wonder how good he could be. Seeing Ducini holding her gun, Wuli tells the Sheng Lord she is a humanized dwarf from the dwarf tribes. Then she remembers while creating the image of a man in her mind who alone kills a monster with his axe, and then she tells the dwarf tribes that, indeed, he possesses incredible strength, and they are second to none in terms of stamina. Other than that, their stubbornness is also very well known. Once they have decided, she is afraid that nothing could change their mind. However, Ducini moves towards Sheng, holding her weapon, saying he knows she is not someone he should mess with, but he still does and now doesn't blame her for her actions. As soon as she throws her weapon towards Sheng, Wuli stops her and her gun with the sword. However, stopping Ducini there, Wuli thinks her strength is incredible, and this kind of power isn't any lower than her, and then asks her if she must be of a high savage rank. Hearing this, Ducini smiles while her dwarf tribe level is 81 savage rank, and they both stand in the air for the fight. Then Sheng, sitting on the couch holding a weapon, says to Wuli she is indeed stronger than her, but holding up for 5 minutes under her immense pressure should be easy. Also, Li was standing beside him. Wuli closed her eyes and replied. Not only 5 minutes after saying this, she opened her eyes, saying she could even defeat her. After this, Wuli moves toward Ducini to attack her. Seeing this, Qi thinks it's weird. What is their purpose for coming there this time? Also, Beowu is looking toward Qi. Then Qi thinks such an unplanned provocation clearly shows that they are just wasting their time there, and then suddenly she realizes their real purpose for coming there. At this very moment, in the secret armory of Gangyi City, Beowu checks the missiles, weapons, and all the machinery and soldiers protecting that place. A soldier enters, asking Commander Beowu if he has completed the examination. Beowu looks toward the weapon and asks the soldier about the firearm. The soldier replies there is one more thing left, and Beowu says the city lord must use these weapons whenever necessary. Any small mistakes will not be tolerated, so he is there to recheck it. The soldier replies, telling her to be at ease. All the equipment there is always checked daily, and Madame Qi is responsible for practicing divination and defending this place. Also, the maintenance status of the equipment is enough for them to be put into battle at any time. And if anyone wants to sneak into this place, Madame Qi will quickly realize it immediately. Beowu smiles, saying, right, he can continue doing his job, and then the soldier salutes him. Yes, Beowu stands there, smiling and thinking everyone is convinced of Madame Qi's ability. However, Yangyu, wearing the same suit as Beowu and holding her weapon, stands aside from that missile machine and smiles, thinking she can be at ease. On the other side, in the living room of the city lord, Qi angrily says to Wuli while holding her magic globe and pointing toward them presumptuously how dare she lay her hands on the city lord. Meanwhile, guards also come there holding weapons. Li turns to look back, seeing guards there. She gets scared, while Sheng doesn't care, and he relaxingly sits on the couch, calmly holding his weapon. Madame Qi ordered the guard to kill Li. Hearing this guard fire toward her, Li quickly clings to Sheng in fear. Sheng, holding her, says, picking the one with the most minor defense to kill. No one has ever dared to use his underhanded methods against him before. Then he tells Li to come close to him and hide. Saying this, he absorbs her into his body, and all the bullets that come out of the guard gun to kill Li stop right there near Sheng. Some shots enter his body, but these bullets do not affect him. Seeing this, Qi shockingly thinks, what kind of ability is that? Why can't she identify it? However, some of the bullets hit Sheng's head and stopped there. Then, he started to shoot them down right after the explosion and utilized the weight and speed of the shots to kill the enemy. Moreover, a bullet penetrates a little into the skin of Sheng's arm. Then he asks if people trust toys like these nowadays. Saying this, he absorbs all the bullets into his hand. Seeing this, the guard stands surprised, and then he smiles, saying a weapon should be simple yet effective. For example, the bullet and resonance in this room. After this, he presses all the bullets in his hand, saying explode, and then the shells burst. Seeing this, the guard surprisingly says the cartridge exploded, and their surfaces are all destroyed. Then Sheng sat calmly on the couch, his legs crossed and his hand tied. Says only through using this principle to develop weapons can it be called such as for this toy. Obviously, there is no way it can be called a weapon. And the world without this king is progressing slowly and barely has any significant changes. On the other side, the fight continues between Wooly and Ducini. Wooly stops her weapon with a sword, seeing Ducini smile, saying, as expected from the dragon tribe, she can't defeat her by relying on strength only. Hearing this, Wooly held her sword, causing her hands to tremble like this. It's been long since she encountered a formidable opponent like her. Meanwhile, Ducini, creating the heavenly iron will, says to Wooly that she is qualified enough to see the true power of this city lord and to be careful as she might get crushed by her. Then, while using her magic, she steps back toward Wooly while Wooly backs away so fast that she slams her sword into the ground. As Wooly backs away, her sword goes back, ripping through the floor, and she, with the support of her sword, stops at one place with incredible difficulty, thinking it feels like there is some force pulling her back. Seeing this, Ducini smiles, holding her weapon, telling Wooly this very weapon of hers is named the Duojin, and she has obtained it, and its power after making a contract with the demon boundary. After activating the heavenly iron will, the total weight of her and her weapon is 2.4 tons. As long as her metal substance is heavier than theirs, she won't be controlled by her. Then Ducini says, in other words, all the metal elements within her body are now under her control and crawl before her. While Wooly crawled on the floor, her sword was stuck near her, and she didn't understand where all her strength was gone. Then, while looking at Ducen, she thinks ordinary tricks seem to be useless against her, and to defeat her, she has no choice but to use that technique. Meanwhile, Sheng, sitting on the couch, says to Wooly that they are there only to negotiate. Fighting and killing like that isn't the purpose of their visit. And if he had to lay a hand on her from the beginning, he would have just asked Deathbird to deal with her. And by this time, her residence would have been in a real mess. Then he tells Wooly that now she can back off, and he will take care of the rest. She blinks and replies, all right, she shall do as he wishes. After this, she goes and stands behind Sheng. Seeing this, Ducini thinks, could it be that this idiot already realized that the power of the heavenly iron will is impenetrable, and making him try to get this over with by negotiating now? But even if that is true, he should have been affected by her earlier as every creature has metal elements within them. But why wasn't he? After this, Ducini orders her iron will to do as she wishes, thinking that since Wooly is hiding behind him, she must exert strength on him. Meanwhile, everything in the living room, including all the lights, bulbs, lamps, furniture, and utensils, unleashed from the wall, and their places flying into the air, move towards Sheng and Wooly to attack. However, she is shocked that he possesses the metal elements in his body. And he surprisingly thinks, what is this? Just how he managed to do that? Is he heavier than her? No, he can't possess more than 2.4 tons of metal elements. Under the very rule